With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker. The future is feeling.
As we move our way up the coast from southern Florida into central Florida, we change from an oval to a road course in the classic Indycar series presented by the Buttkicker. Hello, everybody. My name is DJ Clark, joined here in the booth by Andrew Kinsella, and we are here at Sebring International Raceway to take on the school circuit for this classic Indycar series. It is a circuit designed to sort of mimic a little bit that of the streets of St. Petersburg, to be able to give us that exact layout that we wouldn't be able to run here on the iRacing service normally. But as we get ready to go racing, it will be fast, it will be exciting, and it will be a great race, as is always presented by this series. We've got a great season worth of races in store for you, as you can imagine. We move from Sebring here, and we were at Homestead in that first round, going to Interlagos next, Laguna Seca, Iowa, Nashville, Gateway, Belle Isle, Auto Club, Indy Road, Phillip Island, and of course, rounding out the season at Indianapolis. And Andrew, I've got to tell you, I don't know if there's a circuit on this schedule that I'm looking forward to more than seeing these Indy cars run, outside of maybe Indianapolis, than this Sebring road course.
It's certainly a very diverse schedule there, DJ, and it's really going to challenge these drivers to have to adapt to a number of different styles of tracks here. You look at a fast road course like Interlagos and contrast that with this week at Sebring. Just having to switch between the two is going to be a very tall order for some of these drivers. Of course, Sebring, it's so bumpy here, and we're on the short course, not the full course here today. So definitely going to be one of those tracks where it's going to be very, very bumpy, and power down, I hear, is going to be a very big issue coming through these corners here today.
Yeah, I think that is going to be a very, very crucial thing, trying to absolutely get the most of it. And also the draft going to play a huge part here today, going down the Ullman Straight and down the start-finish straightaway into turn one. It's going to be very, very crucial to try to get that right. There is the layout there that you can see, and running just about the first half of it here in this Central Florida location. Not too far away from Orlando is this Sebring place, obviously most well known for the 12 hours of Sebring, but today we let loose the Indy cars and get them to run. And as we said before, heading all across North America and indeed into South America on this. Today's info, it's going to be a 100-lap race, as is sort of the tradition here in the Classic IndyCar Series, trying to recreate a full race distance. So that will be a good way to get it around and to get it through how it goes. So 100 laps around here today, that will be it. And the pit stop cycle looking to be about 35, 36 laps or so. And Andrew, I think that's going to maybe present a little bit of a potential fuel saving window, maybe a little bit of a potential absolute push window. Some strategy could come into play here.
Yeah, absolutely. Fuel is going to be the key here today, DJ. It's definitely not one of those tracks that is really, really tough on tires. So it's all about the fuel strategy, and getting that right is going to be very, very important. And as you mentioned, there's a number of different approaches that can be taken here. And I think it all comes down to where you are on the circuit, what kind of window you have in terms of traffic in front of you when you're looking to come in, but also what kind of traffic you're coming into when you actually exit that pit lane. So it's going to be fascinating to watch all the different strategies that work here today.
Well, and indeed, you said before, traffic is going to be a big talking point. Only a 2-mile circuit around here. Lots and lots of rookies taking up in this series. There, you can see them all on the right side of your screen. Godso, Carswell, Styles, Carter, Davis, Dance, just to name a few. It is a very, very healthy and vibrant series as we get ready for the rolling pace laps around here to be able to kick things off a true IndyCar style, a rolling start. Probably a little bit of a good thing is these old Indy cars known for a little bit of wheel spin off of the line, and I think that could definitely play a little bit of an issue as we get going.
Yeah, of course, these cars don't have the turbocharged engines that modern Indy cars do. They are normally aspirated, but it's the torque curve on these engines that really gets you. It's just such a brutal power delivery. You get so much wheel spin, even coming out of low-speed corners. So definitely a rolling start is going to be a good thing for all of these drivers here today. It's going to cut down on the carnage just a little bit on that first lap, but at the same time, I'm looking at turns 2 and 3, DJ, and it's going to be very interesting to watch all of these drivers try to negotiate that really tight section to get back onto that back straightaway there.
Yeah, indeed it is. And you mentioned earlier a little bit of the bumps here. Now, we're used to talking about the bumps in, GT cars and prototypes that we're more used to seeing run around the Sebring circuit. How are these Indy cars going to handle the notorious bumps around Sebring?
Well, it's definitely going to create some setup compromises. We know that it's probably going to make them have to run a little bit higher ride heights and change up some of the suspension geometry. But most importantly, it becomes crucially important that you nail the tire pressures here today, because if you get that too soft, then it's not going to go through the bumps well at all and not go through the corners well. But if you get it too hard, these Indy cars can really start to bounce over these bumps. And so just miss it just a little bit and it's going to be a handful of a car. So definitely something to watch out for.
Yeah, it's certainly something to watch out for. The other thing to watch out for, I think, is also because this is such a shorter circuit and a lot of it is spent on full throttle, you're definitely going to be able to do a lot of drafting, I think a little bit similar to what you see on the ovals in these Indy cars. That's going to be a little bit similar in that regard. The other thing to keep an eye on for those familiar with this Sebring circuit is that on this school layout, they don't take the traditional sunset bend. That corner instead runs down into, let's call it about a 112-degree corner that really almost folds over on itself. It's not that traditional run through there, and that will at least hopefully avoid some of those bumps as we watch Joshua Chin going through that tricky turn 2-3 complex that you were talking about earlier, Andrew.
Yeah, it definitely does create another passing opportunity, I would say, as well, just because it does lengthen out that Ullman straight just that little bit, and it really allows them to wind up the engine, and then they have to really get on the brakes hard because it is such a tighter hairpin. So really good passing opportunity there at the end of, as you mentioned, a very good drafting opportunity as well.
And drivers here currently out on track for just a quick little warm-up. About 4.5 minutes to go in that session. Andrew Wood and Henry Bennett and Joshua Chin currently the top three, even though they're the only three to set times down on the board. But you mentioned a little bit of fuel saving here. Obviously, that is going to play a huge part, and I think it's got to probably come into play a little bit for some of the masters of fuel saving, like we like to talk about with Joshua Chin, who we ride on board with. Do you think he'll have a little bit of an advantage being able to be lighter on that right foot?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the likes of Chin, Henry Bennett, another one, really, really good on the fuel saving. And where you really find that they tend to have a little bit of an advantage is over some of the rookies. For instance, like a Jack Styles, maybe not quite as familiar with the car. Same with Cameron Dance. We know that Cameron Dance is one of those really, really quick drivers, always fast on a road course. But does he understand this car well enough to master that fuel saving technique that a Josh Chin or a Henry Bennett does? That's going to be a real question to watch here.
Well, and another big question to watch out for is that very quick pit entry that you just saw Joshua Chin take. He is demonstrating exactly what it is the briefing to the drivers, very, very clear that you need to signal your intention to come in as early as possible, really get over to the left. And, it's a tricky pit in GT cars, but in these Indy cars, you're going so much faster as there is a big kerfluffle happening now going down into turns 1 and 2. But but I think that pit in, we could see a couple of pit lane speeding penalties with just the amount of speed that these drivers are going to be carrying around that final corner.
And the drivers, especially at the top of this field, are going to have to try and maximize every inch of that pit in, because you can gain just so much time by maximizing it, but if you misjudge it a little bit, just as you say, it can cost you as well. But that's not the only thing that we have to, I think, look for in terms of pit in or pit road, I'm sorry, because pit out here is also a very tricky proposition, because you basically feed out onto the outside of turn one, exactly where the racing line is. So there's, I think, going to have to be a lot of give and take through these pit cycles as these cars try to blend into traffic as well, and that could potentially see some calamity at some point during this race.
Yeah, indeed. And by the way, just to run you through the last drivers to win here, Lucas Laville was your winner back in 2020 when the series first visited this circuit. Grosser behind them, and Joshua Chin was third. So keep an eye out for those names to continue to try to carry on. And yeah, Andrew, to your point, that tricky pit out, and here we're dealing with a little bit of that traffic, a little bit of that follow the leader that's definitely going to exist coming around some of the slower portions of that track coming through turn 2 and into Bishop Bend. I mean, navigating by some of that traffic, we always see lapped traffic coming into play here. That's an art form in and of itself, to be able to try to get by as quickly as possible and not get held up.
Absolutely, especially because this configuration of the track, while it does have a couple of prime passing opportunities, this corner in particular here in Sunset Bend is definitely a prime passing opportunity, but it also has that rhythm section on the back half of the track, and it really does force the drivers to be heads up as they're trying to come around lap traffic. It forces the lap cars into probably some undesirable situations, as well as the leaders as well. So patience is going to be very important, and picking your spots in order to execute the pass is going to be very important as well.
When you can see just how tight it is there coming up through turn 2 and into Bishop Bend, into that rhythm section that you described, coming down through Jean Debienne right now, and very, very hard to pick your lines here. You can kind of get lost in the track a little bit because it is such a flat surface. Whoa, a little bit of a wiggle there coming off of the corner, and I think those are exactly the kind of mistakes that drivers are going to be looking for, getting that torque down and having a little bit of problem with tire spin that you mentioned earlier. That's a prime opportunity to be able to try to get a dive up ahead.
Absolutely, and I just want to go back to what you mentioned about picking out your lines, because that is a real problem here around Sebring. It's a very, very flat racetrack, and unlike a GT car where you're sort of sitting upright in the car and you maybe have a little bit more command of what you can see in terms of apexes, when you're in an Indy car, you're very, very low to the track, and it really causes difficulties picking out these apexes. So that's going to be something that the best drivers are really going to rise to the top, just because of the fact that it's so difficult to really pick your lines well around here.
Well, those drivers are going to have to be picking their lines pretty soon, because the checkered flag is out for practice, and we are ready to go racing here in Sebring. And bringing you now that lineup for your starting grid, lining up in pole position. It's going to be Thomas Mustonen with Henry Bennett to his outside. Oscar Fredrickson will line up in P3 with Joshua Chin for Team Chimera in 4th. Cameron Dance will be 5th in that Texans Fitzstein Motorsports machine, and Stefan Schlocker rounds out your top 6.
In 7th, we have your defending race winner Lucas Laville and Matthew Molinar in 8th. Marshall Stanley in 9th alongside his Vortex teammate of Jan Hoffman. Robert Grosser rounds out the Vortex back half of this top 12 in 11th alongside Jan Dirks.
Back in 13th, it's going to be Sebastian Kinder, followed by Jack Stiles, with Franz Joseph Stum in 15th and Andrew Wood for Team Chimera in 16th. Hans Pitkinen will be 17th, and Andrew Adkin rounds out the top 18.
In 19th, we have Jamie Wilson alongside Vesa Ilha Olila. 21st is Randy Shoemake alongside Andrew Adair Sanders. Caleb Sellner in 23rd, and Jonathan Diggs in 24th position.
25th will be Jack Turner for ARX Racing, and Robert Barkano will round out your 26-car grid here today. So you can see drivers working their way around here behind that iRacing pace car. Hopefully won't see that thing out on the track at any point during this race. As we said, 100 laps around this Sebring circuit, and with lap times clocking in at just under a minute, anticipate about a 90-minute or so race around here. So what are your keys to victory, Andrew? What is it going to take to get one of these classic Indy cars into victory lane?
I think we've already touched on most of them. First of all, you have to master the draft. You have to be really confident on your braking, especially in a sunset bend, and take advantage of the passing opportunities that present itself. And finally, you have to master that fuel strategy. We talked about Josh Chin and Henry Bennett being two of the best in terms of fuel economy. Look for someone to have to step up to their level if they want to take one of those two down here today.
Well, we are about to find out who is going to be able to step up to their level, because we're about halfway down the Ullman Straight here as we get ready to go racing for round 2 in this classic IndyCar series in the IndyCar Ministry Grand Prix of St. Pete. Getting ready to come around Sunset Bend here for this final time on this pace lap. There we go. Mustonen leading the field to the final corner. That pace car scampers off into pit lane, waiting for the green to fly, and there it is. We are racing in the IndyCar Ministry Grand Prix of St. Petersburg. It is a great start there for Thomas Mustonen, and he's able to pull ahead there a little bit. Henry Bennett having a little bit of an attack from Oscar Fredrickson, but everybody trying to filter their way up through the corner. Joshua Chin holding on as they go side by side into that tricky area for the first time, down into the rhythm section. Chin able to muscle his way by Fredrickson, and contact in the back.
We had Grosser flipping through that turn 2 area. He's gotten back going again, but he has some severe damage to his front wing, and I think there was another small incident that happened as a result of that. But up front, look at the lead that Mustonen has got out already on Henry Bennett here. He didn't just nail that start, he absolutely destroyed the rest of the field on that first lap there.
It looks like he certainly knows that he needs to be on it. As we jump back to check out the replay, this is what you were talking about. Little bit of up and over. Ooh, ouch. That is not the way you want to see an IndyCar land.
And it looked like the other two involved there was Andrew Aitken, and then, we've had Oscar Fredrickson out of third place here.
Oh my goodness, Fredrickson limping down pit lane with some severe damage to the front end of that car. What happened to Fredrickson?
It looks like he just lost it at some point on that first lap there. I think it might have been, coming out of Sunset Bend, he just loses it on the power. We talked about how dangerous it is to get back onto the power, and then he does make contact with that inside wall, so he's definitely going to need a wing change, and that's put Fredrickson from a very good starting position right down to the back of this field.
Indeed it is. A little bit of a move here, starting to develop down to the inside, diving into that extended Sunset Bend, and that's going to be moved, done, and dusted there. I believe that was the 25 machine, Marshall Stanley, being able to move his way back up forward. This is Matthew Molnar and Stefan Schlacher duking it out. Schlacher trying to look back to the outside, recovering that position, tries to go the long way around turn 1. I don't think that's going to exactly work. Molnar tries to feed him out a little bit, but Schlacher will not be denied, clobbering the curb and retaining onto that position.
Yeah, and that's something that we'll have to look out for, because you saw Schlacher, he just hung it all out on the outside there, and what that does is it's such a short run back down into turn 2 that he was able to take the turn, the inside on turn 2, and basically take away that apex and defend his position. But it definitely looks like Schlacher is under severe attack here, both from Molnar but also from the Vortex duo of Laville and Hoffman behind him.
Exactly, and Laville poking his nose to the inside there a little bit, trying to fill the rearview mirrors potentially of Molnar. Molnar again, Molnar going down to the inside, trying to get that move again done through Sunset. Schlacher, I think, a little bit more wise to it this time around. He was able to block off the apex a little bit more. He'll hold on to the lead by about 3 car lengths as they charge down the front stretch.
Yeah, but Schlacher is under severe pressure here, and you can just see just how much having that extra bit of power really does make a difference. As we saw a car on the outside there, I think that was one of the lap cars that had problems on lap 1, just getting out of the way of this leading battle here. But you can just see just how much Schlacher needs to maximize these exits, because this is the run that Molnar needs. He really needs to maximize this run down into the corner. But look at how well Schlacher is defending here. I really do think that Schlacher might be very, very trimmed out, making Molnar go along around the outside and Schlacher able to defend once again. I do think that we might be seeing a little bit of a downforce differential here between these two cars, DJ.
I think we may be as well, as Schlacher looks very, very quick at a straight line. Molnar continuing to try to poke his nose. Now he's going to go to the inside of turn 1 to see if that works. Schlacher's going to hold on to that outside line. Again, is he going to be able to defend in the same way that we've seen him do it before? And yes, he is, right down into turn 2 and able to hold that out. And Andrew, you talked a little bit about that setup. I mean, we talked about the tire pressures here, but in terms of running the wing, it seems to me that this is a place that you would want to trim out the car as much as humanly possible.
Well, it's definitely a trade-off, DJ, because we do have that rhythm section that you really do need the downforce for. But when it comes to a place like you see here, where we have this really long straight, you want that extra bit of speed that having that low downforce setup can get. So what you're seeing is, I think Molnar probably has the faster car between Schlacher and Molnar right now, but Schlacher just has so much speed on the straightaways that Molnar just simply isn't able to get by him. But if Molnar ever does, I expect Molnar to sort of go off into the distance just a little bit on Stefan.
Well, we'll have to keep an eye on that. Stefan definitely locking that down and being a little bit of a cork in the bottle here. LaVille and Hoffman behind, a little bit plugged up as we focus a little bit farther back in the field. This is Jack Stiles, Marshall Stanley, and Jan Dirks as they run around in 9th, 10th, and 11th, working their way through that rhythm section right now as we work on lap 6 of this 100-lap race.
And there's battling throughout the field here. Marshall Stanley is one of those drivers who probably didn't qualify quite as well as he didn't get a great start, was in and around that melee with his teammate Robert Grosser, and it cost him a couple positions there. So he's one that I would definitely expect to move back up through this field, but definitely you can see that there are battles all throughout. One of the big movers so far, Andrew Wood, is up a number of positions. He's up 4 already. And then Randy Shoemake is another one to keep your eye on. He was down in 21st, and he's already up to 15th.
Yeah, they're good movers there. Jack Stiles as well, who we continue to watch here. He's another one. He is up 5 on the day, so a good run for them. By the way, Fredrickson, Grosser, Pitkinen, and Aitken, those drivers that we saw involved in those scuffles on the first lap, they are either still in pit lane getting repairs or have retired from this race, so effectively out of it at this point. Drivers working their way out and around right now as we continue to watch. Stiles leading the way from Stanley, leading the way from Dirks. We're starting to break out into some of these draft trains a little bit as, ooh, that was a little bit of a look there for Stanley.
Yeah, and you can definitely see the drivers that maybe have that lower downforce settings are sort of the engine in all of these trains here with Stefan Schlacher, but also looking at Jack Stiles here, it definitely seems like when you have the lower downforce, you sort of inevitably get to the front of one of these trains. But one thing we haven't talked about very much right now, DJ, is just what kind of a lead that Thomas Mustonen has over Henry Bennett and Josh Chin at the front of this field.
Yeah, we have it. It is 4.5 seconds. There you can see it visualized on your screen. Thomas Mustonen absolutely driving away from this pack. The iconic motorsports driver just putting that 22 through its paces. A massive, massive gap back to Bennett. And it really doesn't look like Bennett has anything to respond with. Is on the last lap alone, Mustonen was 0.5 of a second faster.
Oh, and Chin has made a small mistake coming through Sunset this past time by. He is now back behind Schlacher as well, so something big has happened to Chin out of 3rd place.
Joshua Chin, who was having a great run there. And, we've got a little bit of side-by-side going on here. That was almost down into the wall. This is that battle with Stanley and Styles that we were watching, trying to see what it is. And the fight back coming through the corners. Styles is going to have a nose ahead as they work their way now through Bishop and into Jean Debienne. It's still side-by-side.
And the spin. Styles spins it out coming through there, and that's going to be painful. But this is going to release all of these drivers who have been lined up behind Styles for so long there.
And let's go back and check out a replay here. This is what happened to Joshua Chin. So this is coming through Sunset, gets that power down, just shifting up through the gears. That just looked like a classic issue of a little bit of tire spin.
And look at how close he came to the wall there. It was the exact same wall that bit Fredrickson earlier, but Josh Chin managed to avoid it by mere inches there. So despite the fact that Chin is now in 5th place, I think that he can count himself lucky, DJ, that he did not find himself in a bigger problem there.
I have to agree with you there, as now we're going to go back and check out the replay of that battle with Styles and see exactly what happened there. I think he just caught a little bit too much of that inside curbing there, and that is what spun him around. Avoided contact with the wall, it looks like, but yeah, let's go back and check out on-board replay here for this Texsense Fitstyle Motorsport driver.
Yeah, you could see he just gets the inside right front corner there over top of the curbing, and that's just all it takes. Is there's a little bit of a drop off on the other side of that curbing, and it just hooked his car around, and that was all she wrote for Styles. And fortunately he was able to continue, only lost about 3 positions there.
Yeah, only lost about 3 positions, so he'll be very, very thankful for that. As we continue to go around, working everything around here. Close battles up at the front and really all the way through the field. We've got a good side-by-side with Hoffman and Molnar as they try to fight their way around. There is that battle coming down into Jean Debienne. That driver's looking very aggressive in this rhythm section.
Yeah, and you almost have to be, because you really need to upset your opponents before they get onto the straightaway. And you can see Lucas Laville in classic Lucas Laville fashion. He's just sitting back here saving fuel behind these 2 drivers. You saw he had a little bit of a run on his teammate Hoffman there, but he didn't take it. But Hoffman looking to the inside of Molnar, 3 wide. They get very close together there, DJ.
They do indeed. My goodness, Hoffman able to pull that ahead, and they're still going to be side-by-side there in the back with Laville and Molnar. As there, now it looks like that side-by-side is going to maybe switch around a little bit. You can't keep track of all of these drivers as they are swapping positions left, right, and center.
The action is coming fast and furious right now, and this has brought that train that was behind them, stuck behind Styles for the longest time. Now it is one big train all behind Hoffman and Laville here, so the action is just intensifying here as all of these drivers are now trying to sort out the new pecking order here, as we've had so much action in these last couple of laps here, DJ.
Exactly, and we're only on lap 12 of this 100-lap race. A little bit of a poke there around, trying to find it as we look back at that 3rd car in line. That's Stanley Dirks trying to take a little bit of a look there. That is that 25 machine trying to go. Looks like a little bit of a run here, maybe from Molnar on Laville. He's going to go to the inside. Looked like Laville didn't fight that one too much.
No, and this is a classic Lucas Laville type of race. He's not very interested in mixing it up this early on in the race, especially when there's fuel saving involved. He is another one of those drivers that is just the master of staying patient and being there at the end. So I expect that when the time comes, Lucas Laville will turn the wick up. But for right now, he's just content to let other people lead and other people take the brunt of the fuel impact so far.
Yeah, and that fuel saving going to be important. As we said, we anticipate fuel stops coming in around lap 36 or so. Looks a little close there. Stanley maybe trying to get a little bit of a run on Molnar, but that's not going to play out. Laville continuing to lead away. Molnar looking to maybe close in behind. While we hopefully have a quick break in the action here, let's go ahead and bring in Robert Grosser, who is ready to chat with us. Robert, we are ready to talk to him now. There he is. Robert's a very, very tough end to this race. Obviously over before it even began for you.
Yeah, certainly not the race start, I should say, I was looking for. It was really unfortunate. I didn't want to take any unnecessary risk there, especially not in turn 2, 3, or in the entire lap 1. But yeah, the spotter called 3 wide, so I was already alerted, stayed as much to the left as I could, and then yeah, I already looked at the replay. It's like a massive net code. There was actually still like 1 meter between Jan and my car, so actually no contact should have happened, but unfortunately with these connections and all, the sim decided otherwise, and yeah, I tried to get the car fixed, but yeah, it was not capable.
Well, I absolutely hate to hear that. I mean, you know, how good of a car did you have here today? Obviously qualifying up where you did. Did you think you had a car that could compete up towards the pointy end of the field?
I would say, depending on, we have to see how the attrition turns out. I thought if I could have had maybe a top 5 to aim for. I mean, I was only qualifying 10th. I didn't have a good qualifying, but we had like the whole Vortex gang has a strong car in the long run, and so without making any mistakes, maybe top 5, but not much more, to be honest. I would not have fought for the podium for sure.
Well, I mean, where do you go from here? Obviously, we have Interlagos next. Is it just kind of putting your head down and all speed ahead towards that next race?
I have to. I mean, the thing is, of course, when I think about the season and the finish at Homestead, I think I finished only 14th. That is actually pretty much 2 drop weeks taken already with this race here. So the next 10 races, I can't afford any more result like outside the top 10. That is simply not possible if I want to have any kind of say in the championship fight, which I anyways don't think, but even if I want to finish like top 5 overall, I really can't afford any bad result anymore. So from now onwards, I really have to deliver on every single occasion, and we shall see. It is not the first time that I open the season very weak and then chasing like through the field. I hope it works out once again, and maybe with a nice finish at Indy at the season end. We shall see. But another DNF would be like already the nail in the coffin.
Well, we certainly hope it doesn't come to that. Obviously, Indy being the big prize on the schedule. But is there anything you're particularly looking forward to running this year?
This race was one of them. But other than that, I'm looking forward to Detroit. Yeah, Indy obviously, and but actually. And I'm quite curious for the first time to go to Nashville, actually. I have no clue. I've never raced there, so that is another one I'm really looking forward to see how the car performs there and all. That should be great.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing you there as well. And again, consolations on what was a very, very tough day for you, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Well, that was Robert Grosser, one of your early DNFs here on the day. And Andrew, you really hate to see somebody as good as Robert, and as he said, looking forward to this race taken out so early. But that's just one of the things that happens in IndyCar racing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the dangers of this style of racing is that first lap is always so busy and it just can happen. But what we're seeing right now is some massive changes in the top 5 here, DJ. While we were talking to Robert, Cameron Dance got around Henry Bennett, and you just saw on screen Stefan Schlocker and now Josh Chin as well around Henry Bennett. So it does seem like Henry Bennett, either he doesn't have the car under him, or I think probably more likely he's engaged in some massive fuel saving right now.
Well, this is a relatively shorter lap there, and as we see Bennett falling down the field, as you said, into 5th there, Chin able to get him around him as well. Remember, Chin was running up in 3rd place, and now he's trying to gain back on Stefan Schlocker to be able to gain that position back. How much can you really save around this track? I mean, are we talking a lap or 2, or are we talking maybe even 3 or 4 if somebody can really pull this out?
Yeah, I think you can actually save a fair bit because you can really coast into some of these corners, especially the likes of Sunset Bend, but also you look at turn one, you can really coast the car a fair bit through there. And so there's a lot of opportunities to actually save despite how short the lap is. And probably because of how short the lap is, you can really save a number of laps. I would say 3 or 4 is definitely at least possible here.
All right, well, we'll have to see as that plays out, as the pit window should open here in about, let's call it 13, 14 laps time or so. Continuing to watch Joshua Chin as he closes down on Stefan Schlacker, although that gap looking like it's fluctuating a little bit. Bennett holding in right behind, trying to see what he can do as the speed begins to build here down this long straightaway. And indeed, drivers starting to get involved in that lap traffic. Jonathan Diggs, the latest car, who's going to come right in the middle of all of this. Cameron Dance, who's about a second up the road from Schlacker, already dispatching him.
Yeah, the lap traffic is really starting to affect all of these drivers in this leading group here, and you can see that they're well behaved so far, but it's only a matter of time, DJ, until we get into one of those real long trains where I just don't think that the lap traffic will be quite as accommodating when we get into, say, that battle that's happening right around 9th or 10th right now.
Yeah, indeed. If you're running a single car around here, it's a little bit easier to get out of the way. But if you are in the midst of a big battle, that is certainly going to set you back a little bit. Riding on board there with Stefan Schlacker for a little bit, you saw that gap to Cameron Dance start to expand ever so slightly. Joshua Chin continues to close in behind a little bit as we jump back further in the field right now, waiting to see how everything is going to fire out. This is a close little battle in the back. This is Jan Dirks, Andrew Wood directly ahead of him, and Marshall Stanley closing in behind.
Yeah, and this battle has been ongoing for a fair number of laps here. Andrew Wood definitely seems to be another one of those drivers who we normally expect him up a little bit further on these road courses, but he just seems to be biding his time, sort of back in behind that grouping of Hoffman, Molinar, and LaVille right now. I do believe he's just recently gotten by Dirk, so we'll have to see if he can sort of bring this group back up into contact with Hoffman, Molinar, and LaVille.
Yeah, and that gap right now is about 2.1, 2.2 seconds, so he's certainly going to close in. And the bad news there for Wood is the fact that Molnar and Hoffman are still relatively close, but LaVille and Bennett have really been able to stretch away there from them. And so that big multi-car battle, it's not going to be slowing them down as much. They're not going to have as much to waste out on track, and so they're going to have to really do this by their own pace.
Absolutely, but sorry, DJ, I'm not sure if this is a misclick or not, but we've just heard in sim that Josh Chin just announced that he might be pitting in the next couple laps here, so that could be a very interesting strategy from the number 93 car.
That could indeed, and that would pretty much lock him into a 3-stop sequence here. That's a little unexpected. I was much more of expecting a 2-stopper to be the optimal strategy.
I would as well, but I will say that I think he might be getting a little bit frustrated here, behind Stefan Schlacker. It's definitely Stefan has been showing a lot of really good pace. He had obviously really good pace in the season opener at Homestead, but he's been showing really good pace here. But I think after that mistake that Josh made, he might be thinking that he's looking to do something a little bit different, or it could have just been a misclick and he announced it just to throw off his competitors because he's gone around another lap here.
Indeed, he has. So I think you're right. That probably is a misclick, as I've got to think coming into a 3-stop cycle and locking yourself into that this early would really throw you off of strategy. We may see a little bit of drivers coming in and out this way, but at lap 25, that seems a little bit early. But just to recap you, by the way, Mustonen continues to lead. That gap now up to a whopping 11.7 seconds over Cameron Dance and Stefan Schlacker. There you can see Dance just coming in the foreground of your shot, with Schlacker coming on by, Josh Chin behind him, and Henry Bennett. Bennett didn't have the best start of the race, but he is clinging on well here in that 007 machine to really keep everything as close as possible.
Yeah, and I really do think that Bennett is doing just enough to just stay in this draft train here, and that's really his goal, is to just save as much fuel as possible and to stay in the draft of Schlacher and Chin in front of him. And as long as he does that, he definitely seems content to just lap at whatever pace that they're lapping at. But meanwhile, you mentioned Thomas Mustin at the front. What can we say about his drive so far, DJ? He is not just distanced himself, he has ran off into the distance. And this is, I think, a performance that we've always suspected that he was capable of, but we haven't really seen it until today.
No, we really haven't thus far, and so to see him be able to put this in, it is a little bit of those predictions coming into fruition here. So very, very good run for him. He is just absolutely on fire in this field. Nobody even able to come close to him. Some more lap traffic starting to come into the picture here for these drivers as they work their way through some of those slower cars in the back of the field. Jan Dirks, I think something may have happened to Andrew Wood. He looks like he's fallen down 2 positions there, losing spots to Dirks and Stanley.
Yeah, it was just a small bobble there from Wood, but it cost him. It's the exact same thing that we've seen so many times so far, DJ, is he just gets loose coming out of Sunset, and then actually, I think he might have actually cut the course a little bit through Sunset Bend, had a penalty, and that might be it, because while it looked like originally he got loose, it does just look like he just got out of the throttle there. So might have been a small penalty there for Wood that he had to serve, and that's put him all the way back behind Stanley and Dirks there.
Yeah, and so he'll have a little bit of gain to do, and here comes Stanley on a move down to the inside into Sunset Bend. Going to get the late braking maneuver done. Feeds out a little bit there on Jan Dirks, and that looks like Dirks is now going to be prey for Andrew Wood, able to regather himself from we suspect to be that slow down penalty. He's going to have a little bit of a look here coming down into turn 1. Not quite close enough to make it work, but now Wood is going to be right back into this equation.
Yeah, this is exactly what Wood needed, is just to gather himself back up and get right back into the battle. And having Dirks and Stanley be battling in front of him, that's exactly what he needed to just get right back up onto the wing of Dirks. So I think this battle is going to continue for the foreseeable future here, because all of these three look really, really well matched here, and it doesn't seem like any one of them is really able to separate themselves from the other two.
Right up ahead of them, we had a little bit of a poke out there from Jan Hoffman on Matt Molnar as he tried to maybe see if he could get anything done. Fell back a little bit, and that's a little bit of the cost. If you get offline going down into Sunset, that's relatively tricky, and you can see that gap. That was as close as nose to tail going down into the corner, and Andrew just losing out there as a result of a thinking about a pass there for Jan Hoffman.
Yeah, it's very, very important to pick your battles here and really make sure that when you make a move that you're making it in a way that's not going to cost ultimately you more time if you fail to make it happen. So it's definitely a very tricky place to pass, but it's also one that's very tempting to pass in suboptimal places. So really a cerebral game going on in many of these battles here, DJ.
And that mental game being played out here is Joshua Chin trying to make a little bit of a move on Stefan Schlacher. He's going to force his way, muscle his way to the inside. Stefan going to have to go the long way around turn 1, but Chin's going to have that preferred line. Feeds the car out. Looks like he's able to make it work. Schlacher going to try to have a little bit of a fight back, but it's going to be for naught. Josh Chin picks up a little bit of the grass there on the outside of turn 1, but able to keep the car pointed in the right way, move Joshua Chin back into the podium positions.
Yeah, we saw Stefan Schlacher earlier was able to hang out on the outside of turn 1 and maintain position, but Josh Chin just made a power move to the inside there and just didn't let him have that inside line coming into turn 2. And I really think that this is a case where Josh Chin sees Cameron Dance sort of running off into the distance in front of Stefan Schlacher a little bit, and the urgency just comes in just a little bit more for that Chimera driver to get around Schlacher and really set sail after Cameron Dance right now.
Well, and Cameron Dance, who just actually put in a personal best lap of a 54.9. Chin a little bit slower on that last lap. We'll have to keep an eye on what those times are as they start coming down. We have hit lap 30, so pit window getting ready to open around here as they continue to go their way around. Again, Thomas Mustonen just absolutely the class of the field, getting that gap up to about 12.5 seconds. I think the only thing he's got to worry about at this point is hardware failure from taking him away from the lead of this race. Knock on all the wood if you are a Mustonen fan.
Yeah, it's hardware failure, and then it's some miracle strategy play from one of these drivers back here that we're watching. If one of them can somehow cut out a stop or do something very different with the strategy, maybe that might be enough to unseat Mustonen, but for right now, he definitely looks like the strongest car and driver combination on this track.
Yeah, he most certainly does. By the way, we do have a growing list of DNFs with Yaila Olia also coming down pit lane and being classified out as the race, and Robert Andrew Adair Saunders having a 2-minute 15-second and continuing on stop. So of our 26, we only have 20 still left running on the field. Last driver currently on the lead lap is Sebastian Kinder, right now running in 13th position, so that pace from Mustonen really starting to catch up to the rest of the field. I would not be surprised if we see the majority of this field put a lap down by the end of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely going to be a race of attrition here. Vesa Ila Olila, by the way, he was another one of those drivers who made a mistake through Sunset Bend on that exit, and just like Oscar Fredrickson before, he was unable to continue. I'm still trying to find out what happened to Andrew Adair Sanders here. I haven't seen any major incidents for him yet. It just kind of looks like maybe the car just wasn't doing what he needed it to do, and he's pulled it off at this point.
And we may have our first scheduled pit stop of the day. Andrew Shoemake coming down pit lane on lap 30. That would be relatively within the fuel window. It's lap 30 for him, as we're currently working on lap 32, so he'll be going a lap down there. Shoemake looking a little bit long in the box, so that may not be completely scheduled, unfortunately, for him. But we keep our eyes focused here on Joshua Chin, who continues to try to chase down Cameron Dance, towing along Stefan Schlacker. Schlacker doing a good job to keep up behind. By the way, on that last lap, Chin was able to take about a half a second out of Cameron Dance's lead, but Dance responded with a personal best and able to pull out 0.3 of a second, so that gap sort of equalizing there at about 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, it's definitely been one of those cases where they're sort of yo-yoing back and forth, trading lap times, but here is Andrew Adair Sanders, and he did the exact same thing as well. So he did continue for one more lap after that and then retired the car. So just there's that big bump just under that bridge there, and it just seems to be catching a lot of these drivers out today, DJ.
Well, and as a driver, if you know it's there, what can you do to kind of counter that bump? I mean, is it a matter of lifting off on the throttle a little bit? Is it a matter of just trying to miss it altogether? How can you avoid having those incidents happen?
So it's definitely a combination of maybe taking a suboptimal line to try and miss the bump, but that bump there is actually so big that it's very hard to avoid. So what you need to do is very carefully modulate the throttle, because you would think it would be easy to just like lift off the throttle entirely, but then A, you could get run over by the car behind you, but B, that might upset the balance of the car enough that it throws you a different way than you were expecting. So you just have to be very, very careful with how you're applying the throttle over that bump. And if you get it wrong, which a few drivers have so far today, it just throws you basically towards that inside wall.
All right, well, that is some good information to have. I'm feverishly writing notes here from when I actually get back in one of these cars at some point to be able to try to run a little bit faster, so thank you, Andrew. But we watch here, Chin starting to streak away a little bit from Stefan Schlacker, starting to build that gap. It's up to about 0.8 of a second. Henry Bennett behind, trying to close in. We are on lap 35. We said that we would anticipate these drivers coming in at about lap 36, so I think the pit window is about to open up fully.
Yeah, I do think it's about to open, but the real question is how long can some of these drivers that we think might be fuel saving can go? Because one of the major advantages in this car can definitely be on the lower fuel loads. So if you can maximize that lower fuel level later on in the race, you can definitely gain back some of the time that you're losing right now. But as we watch this battle between Stanley, Dirks, and Wood still going on, we saw this earlier on in the race, DJ, and it doesn't look like it shows any signs of slowing down here.
No, it certainly does not. Stanley leading Dirks, leading Wood as they come around, waiting to see if anybody's going to peel off down pit lane. I mean, we talked about that earlier with maybe an early stop from Joshua Chin. Looks like there, though, that Dirks is going to be doing it, but that's going to be Stanley, Marshall Stanley, pulling down pit lane. He will be the first pit stop here. It also looks like Jack Stiles going to be coming down as well, firing off this first cycle of pit stops.
So these drivers, I don't mind this call because they're sort of mired back in the pack just a little bit. So now the question will be, how well do these drivers come in? Oh, as Thomas Mustonen is in now.
All right, so your leader coming in as well. Plenty of drivers opting to pull the trigger here. There is Mustonen coming down in that number 22 iconic motorsports machine. Everybody coming in, and remember the blend lines here in this series, the fast lane, the Excel decel lane, just like they run in IndyCar. Looks like also Stefan Schlacker coming down pit lane as well. Molnar, another one pulling the trigger here. And this is really the point in the race where we see who has been able to save the most fuel. That also looks like Jan Dirks coming down pit lane.
Yeah, a number of drivers coming down pit road here. Molnar and Dirks, as you mentioned, and so the pit road is really getting busy, but I definitely think that there is something to be said about this sort of fuel-saving strategy that Dance, Chin, and Bennett seem to be on. Luke Slaville, another one that looks to have been saving some fuel, and it'll just pay off later on in the race. The question is, has Mustonen been fast enough so far in this race to just make that lead that he has insurmountable?
Well, all evidence points to yes, but we'll have to see how it plays out over the pit stops. Chin there now working his way around, still trying to close in a little bit on Cameron Dance, but Dance actually went purple last time in the first sector, or rather this time by, so that to me tells me he is on full push mode. I would not be surprised if we see Cameron Dance coming into the pit lane this time. He has been able to extend that gap to Joshua Chin. It's up to about 4.3 seconds here at this point. Bennett about 2 seconds behind Chin. Jan Hoffman now coming down pit lane, and so that means we are just waiting on Andrew Wood, Dance, Chin, Bennett, and LaVille to make their pit stops.
Yeah, and that purple sector from purple lap from Dance and Chin, and they're trading it. That really goes to show just how well these tires hold on around this track, as we do see Dance coming down pit lane this time by. Chin does come down as well as Bennett, so your top three all in on the same lap 38 here. But I was going to say, DJ, that really does show you just how important it is to maximize your time on the light tanks on low fuel, because the tires really don't seem to be letting go that much here.
Yeah, they certainly don't, and so that means you are able to push a little bit more on that rubber. By the way, Andrew Wood also coming down pit lane, so that is going to mean your entire field here has come into the pit. So the longest we've seen these guys be able to stretch it, Chin, Bennett, Dance, LaVille, and Wood all able to stretch this stint out to 38 laps. So that is good news for them, waiting for them to get their service in and out of pit lane right now. We'll have to see how everything shakes out once this pit stop is Steichel is done and dusted. Waiting for everybody to come out. Looks like a lot of our gaps starting to separate out here a little bit more. Joshua Chin looks like he was able to jump Bennett. Cameron Dance long in the pit stall. I think that's a pit lane speeding penalty for Cameron Dance.
That was absolutely a pit lane speeding penalty for Cameron Dance there. But we've also just had an incident with Henry Bennett on the back on his outlap here. Big incident here with a lapped car. It looks like he just got T-boned coming onto the Ullman Straight.
Oh no, that is not what you want to see for Henry Bennett. We'll have to pull up a replay there, but it looks like he's been able to continue on at least slightly. So this is Bennett on your screen. Let's find out what happened. Is that just a coming together? Oh!
Yeah, that was just Jonathan Diggs there. He completely misjudged that corner, just didn't seem to turn in at all, and that's cost the 007 of Henry Bennett a massive amount of time here. He is now a full 8 seconds back of Stefan Schlocker, who he was fighting with before, and he'll be lucky to have escaped any damage there.
Just taking a quick cosmetic look at the car, it doesn't look too bad, but obviously some of those steering arms could be damaged and something else could happen for him. Yeah, no damage to the rear wing there. I'm not seeing anything out of place, but he is going to be now in a pretty much a four-way battle. Lucas Laville, Jan Hoffman, and Matt Molnar all starting to close in behind as they go here riding on board with Bennett. I'm not hearing anything out of the engine that would tell me that anything's wrong, and I'm not seeing any massively out of the ordinary steering. Let's see once he gets onto the straightaway. Maybe a little bit of a kink to the right there, but nothing too crazy.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm seeing is Lucas Laville behind him. He was about 5 miles an hour quicker on the straightaway, so I definitely think that there is a little bit of a straight line disadvantage for Henry Bennett. He's trying to fight back against Laville, hanging in there on the inside through turns 2 and turn 3, but I think it's only a matter of time before Laville's straight line speed advantage now allows him to get past Henry Bennett here.
I have to agree with you there, and Bennett is really proving to be a cork in the bottle here as Hoffman and Molnar have completely caught up to the back of Lucas Laville here at this point. Here comes that speed advantage right now playing out. Laville down to the inside on Bennett. Big move, big pass, and that was Hoffman thinking about it for a second. Bennett, really nothing he could do.
Yeah, so you definitely think that there has to be some kind of damage there for Henry Bennett, maybe to the underwing, or maybe just the toe is out on the car and it's creating just that little bit more friction with the road, because he's just not able to defend against any of these drivers right now.
Yeah, he's really not, as there goes Hoffman trying to get by Bennett. Bennett muscling his way around, trying to get there. Bennett's going to be able to hold it out. Is that going to open up an opportunity for Molnar to get by? Yes, indeed it is. Matt Molnar now moves his way up into 6th place position as Jan Hoffman was held up by Bennett with that suspected damage.
And by the way, DJ, what all this means now is that Josh Chin is the nearest driver to Thomas Mustonen, 15 seconds back of the lead of the race, with Stefan Schlocker now inheriting a podium position once again. And he's about 10 seconds up on this battle here as Laville made a big mistake through Sunset Bend there.
Oh, and that is really going to hurt Laville. That is going to allow for Molnar to stretch ahead a little bit of Hoffman, and Molnar now continuing to fight amongst themselves, and that's going to allow for Henry Bennett to hold on to this 4th place position for a little while longer. Let's go back and check out that replay. This was the mistake for Laville. Did he just bring too much speed into the corner there? What was that?
100% he carried way too much speed into that corner, and you could tell that he knew it as soon as he turned in. The back end of the car just did not want to slow down enough, and it just rotated around, over-rotated, and he lost that well early into the corner, well before the apex there. So that was just a flat-out mistake there from Lucas Laville. Not often that we see that, DJ.
No, not often at all, as that is certainly a surprise to see. Is everything looking like it's calming down here a little bit? Just an interesting point of note, by the way. The gap between the leader and 2nd place is still hovering at about 14-15 seconds. But Joshua Chin has been working that down. The last 4 laps, he has been quicker on average by about 0.4 of a second than Thomas Mustonen. So there could be a little bit of a race here on our hands with about 65 laps to go.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier with the fuel strategy, is you don't think that it's going to be as big an advantage of it is, but particularly in a situation like this where we have tires that will last and last and last, there is a distinct advantage to carrying less weight and less fuel in the car as the run goes on. So I think it's definitely the case where now Chin, now that he made that number on the first stint, he's comfortable sort of opening up the throttle and trying to reel Mustonen back lap after lap, because he still has over half the race to reel back in that 15-second gap.
Yeah, he really and truly does, and we'll keep an eye on that out of the corner of our eyes, but we've got to keep our eyes focused here on the closest battle on track, which is this battle still between Bennett, Molnar, and Hoffman. LaVille about 1.5 seconds behind, but I've got to think that LaVille will be able to catch back up to this trio here in just a couple of laps' time if Bennett continues to seemingly hold up Molnar and Hoffman.
Absolutely, but one of the things that Molnar just doesn't seem to be able to get quite close enough to Bennett to make a move, so that's really, I think, holding up the rest of this train as well. Is he's just not quite close enough by the end of the Ullman Straight to really have that lunge down the inside of the 007 car, but it's definitely going to be fascinating to see how LaVille now responds to that little bit of adversity, because I definitely think he's probably, of these 4 drivers we have on screen, the fastest of the 4 of them right now, but he's got to sort of rebalance himself and get a little bit of confidence back, especially into that sunset bend, because you really have to have that level of commitment to maximize that corner, and it not only affects your Ullman Straight speed, but it also basically affects your run all the way down into turn 2. So it's definitely a case where he has to sort of put that incident behind him as quickly as he can and get back to digging here.
Well, and he certainly needs to, and it frankly looks like that just on the last lap, he was able to sort of dig himself out of the hole a little bit, able to close in by about 0.2. Let's see what the times are on this next lap, as it just looks like they continue to work their way around this battle, getting close. That could be Hoffman starting to close in behind a little bit. Who's going to be the one to make the brave maneuver down into turn 1? Looks like that's going to be Molnar going down to the inside of Bennett. Bennett's going to try to hold it around the outside, and here they go, side by side. A little bit of lap track up ahead of him. That's Jack Turner. Oh, forced off to the outside is Hoffman.
And it gets so narrow through there that the cars nearly come together, and Bennett he will not let that inside lane go into turn 2 and turn 3, and it's really preventing these drivers behind him from getting that big run that they need on him. But right now he's got a little bit of a draft from the lap car, but I think Molnar here, he's closer than he's been on every other lap. He might just be able to make it into sunset.
Might just be able to do it. Can he make it work? It looks like he's got it into sunset. Bennett looking for the crossover, not quite able to get the power down off the corner the way he would like, and is now he going to be a sitting duck here for Jan Hoffman. Hoffman looks to the inside of Bennett as they cross over the start-finish line to work on lap 48. Here he comes down to the inside, going for a 2-for-1, but he loses it.
And LaVille spins as well.
Oh, LaVille spinning in sympathy. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Oh, my, just chaos here, DJ. And they're still wrecking here as we have a car tumbling over itself. Alt F4 is out. I think that was Andrew Wood.
I think it was as well. Wood towing back to the pits. LaVille towing back to the pits. Attrition rearing its ugly head in a massive incident on lap 49.
Yeah, that was definitely some clumsy stuff going on. We're going to have to see a full replay to understand everything that happened there. But from the looks of it, Hoffman, he just got into turn 1 just that little bit too hot, lost it on the inside. And then what was I saying earlier about the balance of the car being very, very important, as we have another car in the inside wall there. I think that was Marshall Stanley.
I think it was as well. Let's go back and check out here what exactly happened. My goodness gracious. Now this, as we watch it in here, just loses the car, carrying a little bit too much speed through the corner, spinning out. LaVille, I think a little bit of incident fixation there and catching that inside, and then tries to continue on, and everything just coming together as the cars go off, and bingo, bango, bongo, there goes Andrew Wood.
Yeah, so what happened with LaVille there, DJ, is, what did I say about the balance being very, very important? When he let off the throttle to avoid his spinning teammate, what that did is it changed where the balance was on the car, and it basically put all the bounce towards the front of the car, and that allowed the rear to rotate around on him, and that was basically what happened there. And then Marshall Stanley, whoa, as Hoffman nearly got into his teammate there. I think he was probably trying to pit there and didn't expect Stanley to be right there, but Stanley did exactly what we'd seen so often before. And then with Hoffman and Andrew Wood there, that is just a pure racing incident and an unfortunate incident for Andrew Wood, because he had a car that had gone off the track on the outside there, rejoining in front of him, and meanwhile Hoffman really had nowhere to go on that inside line, and they just touched, and Andrew Wood definitely got the worst of that impact.
Yeah, he certainly did. Wood sent tumbling there, and that really breaks up the majority of our battles out on track as we cross over the halfway mark in this 100-lap race. Matt Molnar and Henry Bennett, now your closest battle out on track, separated by just a couple of tenths of a second.
And what that has done, DJ, as well, is it has basically eliminated the entire Vortex Sim Racing stable in one lap there, unfortunately, with Stanley, Hoffman, and LaVille all having massive incidents on that one lap. The only thing that I can remember that is even close to that is Team Chimera did this last year at Watkins Glen, where they all did sympathy spins of each other within a couple of laps of each other. But I don't think I've ever seen a team quite as wiped out as Vortex Sim Racing was on that one lap.
Indeed, that is just the hardest of heartbreaks there for them. Molnar there, you can see on your screen, able to finally get by Bennett, as that should put Bennett down into 5th place. And indeed, but Bennett holding on here relatively well. But yeah, it's just, oh my goodness, such an unfortunate incident there for Vortex Sim Racing. You can't think of a more disastrous lap than that.
Absolutely, but they do still have a couple of drivers in the field, but really the battle that we're watching right now, this is the best battle on track, with Molnar finally getting around Bennett. But the question is, will Bennett now be able to use the draft and maybe take away some of that straight line speed advantage that we've been seeing, or will Molnar sort of be able to set sail after Stefan Schlacker? But Schlacker now almost 20 seconds in front of Molnar, so this battle has really cost the 29 and the 07 a lot in relation to potentially getting a podium here.
Yeah, indeed it has, but I've got to give some credit here to Henry Bennett. I thought for sure with the damage on that car that once Molnar was able to get on by him, that he was going to streak off into the distance. He's still keeping this close. The gap's only about 3/4 tenths of a second right now as they work their way through turns 2 and 3. Bennett doing an incredible job.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like Bennett might have, I think, probably some of the highest downforce levels in this field, because he's really able to do a good job through this section and really utilize that downforce advantage that I'm speculating that he has to stay with this 29 car of Matt Molnar. But it's definitely, with the damage, going to be a tall ask for him, but we've seen Henry Bennett do some miracle drives before, so I will never count him out, despite how damaged his car might be.
Well, indeed, we'll have to see if that miracle drive is able to play out. It looks like he's stalking behind here a little bit more. Going to check with him to see just what he's doing. It could be a situation here where he's maybe trying to do a little bit of fuel saving, although it looks like he ran a little bit wide there through turn 1. That's going to throw him off a little bit.
Yeah, and that was definitely not what Henry Bennett needed. He needs to be able to stay really close to Matt Molnar, regardless of whether it's fuel saving or whether it's damage that is holding him back right now. The farther that the gap is between these two cars, the less of a draft that you get. So it's definitely in Henry Bennett's basically, if he can do it, he needs to be able to somehow get right onto the back of Molnar again.
Well, he's going to try to push here. Takes a little bit of a narrower line there through Sunset, just trying to maximize off of the corner. He's able to get the gap down to 0.8 of a second off of Sunset Bend, so he's clearly got the speed through the twisty bits. I just have to agree with you there, Andrew, that I think it's the speed differential in between the two that's coming back to bite him a little bit. The other driver to keep an eye on that will be working his way back up through the field, he's nowhere close to anybody right now, but that's Cameron Dance. Remember, Cameron picked up what we believe to be a pit lane speeding penalty penalty. He currently finds himself in P8, the last driver on the lead lap, trying to work his way up and forward right now.
And he has definitely been one of the drivers that has been at least equal to Thomas Mustonen in terms of pace, now that he seems to just be going at a flat-out pace here. And he is definitely getting lap by lap closer to the back of Jan Dirks and Jan Hoffman in front of him. So I think Dance at least stands a very good shot here at a top 5 and maybe even a podium, depending on how the attrition works in the second half of this race.
Yeah, attrition, the big name of the game here early on, and we'll have to see how that plays out. By the way, we are on lap 56. We anticipate the next round of pit stops probably firing off somewhere between about lap 70 onward, based off of what we were seeing. So still about 13 laps to go until we see those pit stops start to take place. And, well, as we saw with Cameron Dance, those can be the big equalizer. You make that little bit of error, that tricky pit lane in, if that throws you off just enough, that can be enough to completely ruin your race.
Absolutely, but sorry, DJ, I just want to draw your attention. We missed something in all of the chaos that's been happening. There was an incident between Jack Stiles and Stefan Schlocker on lap 53, and Schlocker might have a little bit of right front or left front damage from it, but it's forced Stiles to basically retire from this race. He's 8 laps down at this point, but Stefan Schlocker, your third place runner, is currently possibly nursing a little bit of damage from that.
Oh, not good there. We'll have to keep an eye on those lap times as we focus back in on the battle here. This is between Bennett and Dirks. That battle back together again. Bennett's pace continuing to be very, very strong here. And as we watch this battle play itself out, again, we want to thank our sponsors here for the series, namely the Buttkicker and Extreme Scoring, the new timing and scoring partner here for the Classic IndyCar series. Definite thank you to both of them for being a part of the series. Watching Bennett and Molnar there, you can see, check them out at extremescoring.info. It's a really, really great app. I highly, highly recommend it. As we continue to watch here, drivers coming down, working their way around. And Andrew, I think you've been taking a look at Schlocker's car. Definite front wing damage?
Yeah, he definitely has front wing damage on the left side, and it's going to be affecting his pace. We've seen the last couple of laps, in fact, he's been a couple of seconds slow a lap. So right now, I think Schlocker, he's just trying to limp it on to this next pit window. Look for him to get on a pit lane as soon as it opens. But you can definitely see on that left-hand side of this shot just how bad that front wing looks right now.
Oh, that is definitely suboptimal there for Schlocker, and I'm jumping up here to take a look at his times, and he is losing leaps and bounds over Molnar. Molnar about 7 seconds behind right now, but Schlocker is losing about a second a lap all the way back, so he has got to be hoping that that pit stop window can come here soon. Now, he can probably come in about as early as lap, I would say 64, 65 if he needs to. And we may see a little alternate strategy there for him.
Yeah, I would even say that maybe 63, given just how far Chin and Bennett were able to stretch it on that first stint. And definitely, if I'm Stefan Schlocker, I'm looking to get that wing replaced as soon as I can, because he is losing massive amounts of downforce and massive amounts of time on track as well.
Yeah, indeed he is. So he is going to be in a real need to get that fixed up. The good news for him, however, is he's not going to have all that many lap cars to deal with. He's got Jamie Wilson and Sebastian Kinder a little bit up ahead of him, but not too many outside of that. We jump back to another battle a little farther back in the field. This is Jan Dirks and Jan Hoffman, the two of them fighting for P6 right now, only separated by about 3/4 tenths of a second.
And this is your closest battle on track right now. Hoffman has done a great job of gathering himself back up, and while he's lost a good 20 seconds to where he was before, he still is definitely in that within the battle for potentially getting a top 5 finish here. So definitely the best hope remaining in this race for Vortex. But look just back beyond this battle. That's Cameron Dance getting ever closer to this battle here.
Yeah, indeed he is. You want to talk about gaining in on lap times. He has been able to close in by a steady stream of about 0.5 of a second on average, lap after lap after lap. So Cameron about to make this into a 3-car battle. Now he is going to be hoping to be able to maybe jump them in the pit sequence. We may see him come in a little bit off cycle to try to jump these two, get a little bit of an overcut and not get caught up too much in their dirty air. Or as these two continue to battle here a little bit, he may do the same thing to just try to get around them and not have to squabble for it out on track.
Yeah, absolutely. This is definitely one of those scenarios for Cameron Dance where having the pit strategy advantage, I think, could come back to really pay dividends for him. And the one other thing I want to mention, DJ, is just past Cameron Dance, that is your leader, Thomas Mustonen, coming up to lap these 3 cars as well. So we talked about how well the lap cars had been behaving earlier on in this race. I do wonder, though, now that he's starting to lap sort of up into this top 10 and really encounter battles like that, like we're seeing on screen right now, that it might not be so easy for him going forwards.
Yeah, exactly. And so that is going to make things a little bit more interesting as Henry Bennett comes down pit lane, opting for that early strategy call. This may be a hair even early on the early side here, Andrew. I've got to be worried a little bit if I'm him that I can make it to the end of the race.
Well, we did see him go 38 laps before, and it's 37 laps for Henry Bennett from here, I believe. So I think that he should be okay. I think if you're Henry Bennett, what you're trying to do is see if there's any possibility that you can repair any possible damage that you had from that earlier incident, and maybe maximize your time with a healthy car. But it definitely looked like with a 9.7 second stop there that Bennett, if he did have anything repaired, it wasn't anything major there.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit of a wing change or something to that nature. We continue to focus here on the battle between Hoffman, Dirks, and now Cam Dance, who has been able to completely close up to the back there, although Cameron lost a good chunk of time, it looks like, coming out. Cameron, he's spun. He's around.
Yep. Yeah, Cameron Dance, he spun it through that final sequence of corners there in Sunset Bend, and all of that work that Cameron Dance had been doing, it is all for naught, but as he actually brings it down on a pit road. But yeah, that spin is definitely going to be costly for Cameron Dance.
Yeah, indeed it is. That is going to cost him lots and lots of time. He was looking at a potential top 5 there, and he's going to have to do it all over.
And he actually had major
again.
damage, DJ, so I think he might actually be out of this race potentially.
Oh, heartbreak there for Cameron Dance as the battle of attrition continues to wage out on this circuit. Dance still in pit lane there, trying to get as much of that repaired as he can.
Yeah, and for Dance, it was the exact same story we've seen time and time again here. Just that bump coming underneath the bridge there, loses the brakes, or loses the rear end, and then right into that wall that just sticks out in such an inconvenient spot for this configuration of track.
Yeah, really, really does. He is still down pit lane there. 45 seconds of repairs. He's all the way dropped all the way down to 10th overall, and I would not be surprised if we see him stay in there for a little bit longer, trying to eke that out. Meanwhile, Dirks losing a little bit of time here to Hoffman, about 42 hundredths of a second last time, 42 thousandths of a second rather, last time around this Sebring International Raceway, trying to see if he can gain anything back up. He may be in a little bit of fuel saving mode, trying to eke out the last gallons of fuel here as they close in on this pit stop sequence.
This is where it all comes down to the strategy and the fuel saving that you've been able to make is basically from here on in, we know that everyone can make it if they stop now, but the question is just how much fuel do they need to take on it, and just how much weight basically do they add to the car at the fuel stop here. So maybe it's just because I'm one of those flight aficionados as well as racing aficionados that I often think of fuel as weight, but it really does matter in these scenarios just how much weight you're adding to the car at the pit stop.
Well, and obviously that's going to affect your top line speed, but Andrew, what else does it do in terms of handling for the car? How does it make it feel? I mean, how much of a difference there does it make, especially in these very, very light Indy cars?
Yeah, it absolutely makes a massive difference. As we see Stefan Schlocker on pit lane right now, actually, he had fallen all the way back to Matt Molnar. But going to your point, every little bit of fuel that you can not put in the car, it really helps the handling of the car. You think about what you're always trying to do if you're tuning a car in the real world. You're always trying to reduce the weight, and every little bit actually does make a big difference. And the heavier the car, oftentimes the worse the car handles, and you really have to try and when we say muscle a car around, we really mean muscle a car, and it takes a lot more muscle and a lot more effort to try and make a car that's heavier really work well. So when you can lighten up that car, it just takes care of the tires better. It allows you to throw the car into corners better. All around, just basically you have a stronger car when it's lighter.
All right, as we continue to watch Hoffman and Dirks now promoted up into 4th and 5th. That was one of the lap cars ducking down pit lane there, I believe. By the way, Schlocker able to come out a lap down, but in 6th place behind them, about 27 seconds behind this battle that we are currently watching. And actually finds himself very close to Henry Bennett. Bennett, who has made that final pit stop as well. And both of them coming in on about a 9.9 second stop. So a little bit of a battle there between Schlocker and Bennett. That is for track position.
And Schlocker actually had a big moment on his pit exit right through this corner here. He got very sideways, and it cost him a good 1.5 seconds and really allowed Bennett to close back up. And it does look like both Schlocker and Bennett, their cars do seem to be working just a little bit better than they were before, DJ. In Schlocker's case, definitely a lot better than he was before, because he was definitely on the slow side with that front wing damage, but it has been repaired, and they both look strong now.
Yeah, they both look strong, and will both be hoping to try to hold on to a top 5 here when everything sorts its way out. Looking at a pit stop delta of about, I would say, 45 seconds or so. And so they're still going to have some room to try to work their way around. Obviously, a win still looking like it's out of the cards there as Thomas Mustonen continues to just dominate this race to the tune of about 15 seconds, despite everything Josh Chin has been able to try to do to him. Nothing closing down, but Bennett here trying to close down on Stefan Schlocker. Once again, the gap at about 0.5 seconds. We've seen that seesaw a little bit here over the past few laps since they've come in and out of the pit cycle.
Yeah, this is definitely the closest battle on the track between the two of them. As we see a quick replay from Stefan Schlocker, and you can see just how much he has to correct that car, and nearly gets into the grass and the dirt there on the exit of turn 1 there. Great hands there from Stefan Schlocker, and that might have just saved him a top 5 being able to catch the car like that.
Indeed, it may have, and we also have more drivers coming down pit lane. Jan Hoffman, the latest to come down here on lap 70. So the driver pitting out of 5th place position, giving up that battle with Jan Dirks. And so that will be out a 10.5 second stop for Hoffman. This may be a little bit close between himself and Schlocker, and Bennett looks like they're going to be able to clear him, but Hoffman certainly may have a little bit of a charge here to try to make in the closing stages.
Yeah, absolutely. Hoffman, he's not out of this by any stretch of the imagination. He can definitely close back up on Schlocker and Bennett here, particularly if the damage to these two cars isn't quite where it should be. But he definitely has the opportunity to do something good here, but it is an uphill battle. And meanwhile, we should mention that Cameron Dance was able to get repaired, but he is 3 laps down and well out of the fight here.
Yeah, indeed he is. So a very, very tough ending there for him. Just waiting for the other drivers pretty much to pick their poison and come down pit lane. We are working on lap 71. We do anticipate the fuel window starting to close here in about 5 to 7 laps time. Right now, it looks like Franz Josef Stum down pit lane right now. He is running 2 laps down and maybe a single lap down when he comes back around. He is the first car 2 laps down. We'll have to check on that on your screen, though. This continues to be Schlacher and Bennett, both of those drivers who had damage earlier in the race, able to come in, get some repairs. Those cars looking a lot better out on track right now. They are battling for 5th place.
Yeah, again, your closest battle on the track, and Henry Bennett definitely looks like he is really hungry to find a way around Schlacher, but Schlacher's not making it easy. We already speculated that Henry might be one of the highest downforce cars in this field. Meanwhile, we also think that Schlacher might be one of the lowest downforce cars in this field, so it's really, you could just see that Henry just doesn't have that straight line speed to really get a good run on Schlacher here.
No, it is not. And Joshua Chin coming down pit lane right now. He is going to come to rest in his box and be getting service on the car as Schlacher and Bennett streak on by, regaining their lap. So Chin safely enough ahead of them. He's not going to have to really worry about an attack from behind. Chin in and out with a 10.1 second stop. He is on pit lane exit.
But interestingly enough for Chin, DJ, is that Mustonen is still on track here. So despite Mustonen being one of the first to stop on the first cycle, he is one of the last to stop, as he is actually now finally on pit lane 1 lap longer than Chin. But meanwhile, on screen, Schlacher made a big mistake coming on the Ullman straight, and this might just be Henry Bennett's chance at making the move happen here.
Henry Bennett was certainly thinks so as he looks to the outside, looking for the crossover there, coming down through Sunset Bend. Not looking like it's going to happen, but Schlacher touches the grass right into the outside wall.
Oh, disaster from Stefan Schlacher. It is deja vu all over again. Of course, those two were really close and had a really tough battle at Homestead in round 1. And then the pressure from Henry Bennett there coming through that corner. Again, it's the same thing that we've seen. Schlacher just loses it on that bump. Coming under the bridge there, you can just see he gets the power down, puts the power down, and then loses the back end. He was able to save it from that inside wall, but straight into the outside wall, and that's going to be massive damage for Stefan Schlacher. Unfortunate end to what had been a really promising run for Schlacher.
Yeah, indeed. It was a very, very promising run for Stefan Schlacher, but Joshua Chin now in and out of pit lane. He finds himself 16 seconds behind your leader, Thomas Mustonen, there, as both of them have taken their pit stops. Molnar and Dirks, by the way, both down pit lane as well. Still waiting here for a couple of drivers to come down. Looks like Sebastian Kinder and Caleb Sellner, 2 of the drivers that we are still waiting to come down, waiting to see what some of these gaps are going to be as everything comes out of the pits. Remember, Dirks and Hoffman were very, very close to one another as they came in. Looks like as they come back out on track, the gap is still going to be within about a second.
Yeah, the battle between Dirks and Hoffman and Kinder as well is definitely not done here. Hoffman is definitely still in for a fight, I think. But wow, this has been, with 25 laps to go, what a race we've seen today, DJ. It's been a little bit crazy at times, but then the domination that we've seen from Thomas Mustonen, and I don't think we've talked quite enough about just how well he's done here today. He's really done a great job here.
He really and truly has. I mean, we have not seen him set a toe out of line during these entire 75 laps out on track. It's very, very impressive run here from Mustonen. It's frankly awe-inspiring to watch.
Yeah, and it's all so calm and collected as well, as you mentioned. He's done absolutely everything right. You've seen Chin and basically every one of his competitors has done something either small that's been wrong, or in some cases very big things that have been very big mistakes and very, very big incidents. But Mustonen, he has been the one driver, at least so far in this race, that he just hasn't done anything wrong so far.
Yeah, he really hasn't. As he now works his way around a little bit more, that's going to be him coming up on some lap traffic. That's actually Henry Bennett right up ahead of him. That means that he will put up to P4 a lap down. That is how dominant he has been on the day, putting the entire field a lap down up to the 4th place position. This is almost harkening back to the days you hear of AJ Foyt or Jim Clark at Milwaukee putting that many drivers a lap down. Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. This is old school domination. I also think of some of the drives in more recent times of Sebastian Bourdais in the kart champ car IRL split where especially if Paul Tracy and his teammate of the time, either Junqueira or Rahal, were out of the picture, he would just simply drive away from everyone else on the field. And this is sort of what we're seeing here today, as he does in fact put Henry Bennett a lap down. It is just one of those drives where everything is going perfectly, and I know in the car he's probably extremely comfortable as well. He's not pushing, but at the same time he's just in this sort of rhythm, in this zone that is just allowing him to really put on this type of performance. Meanwhile, back in the battle for fifth, Jan Dirks and Jan Hoffman, the two Jans going at it once again here, and really since Jan Hoffman's mistake, this has been a battle that just doesn't seem to want to quit, DJ.
No, it really doesn't. Dirks just continuing to drive a good race here. Not necessarily going defensive, I would call it, but just being able to position that car at the apex and not making any mistakes, and that's what he's got to do. Now, he's going to have a little bit of problem here, as that's Caleb Sellner up ahead. That's going to be some lap traffic. And then about 3.3 seconds up the road from them, that is Henry Bennett in fourth place. And as a result of, I think, partially getting lapped by Mustonen, but over the course of the last lap since the pit stop, Bennett has been losing time to this pair. So we could see a three-way fight develop out before this race is over.
Yeah, and one thing we do know about Henry Bennett, DJ, is that he was right on that very outside edge of the fuel window. He came in, I believe, on lap 63 for the leader. So he has 37 laps to do on this fuel tank. So it's very possible that, especially now that Stefan Schlacher is no longer in the picture and he really isn't fighting with anyone at this point, that he's just in full fuel save mode trying to make it to the end of this race here.
Yeah, and I have to think that is certainly going to be a way to get themselves around, as this battle just continues to be nice and close here. Running down the long Allman Straight, working on lap 78 of this race. Looks like, by the way, that Bennett was able to pull out 0.2 of a second over Dirks on that last lap. And so maybe that gap not becoming a three-way battle. It is pretty close, though, between Dirks and Hoffman, the gap coming down under 0.2 of a second.
Yeah, this is where all the action is, and Hoffman, I think, is really looking to get into this top five, and I do think that he probably has a little bit better pace than Dirks at this point, but it's also very possible that he still has some residual damage from all of the extracurricular activities we saw on that lap back near lap 50 there. So it'll be interesting to see how he approaches these last 20 laps, and whether he really starts to try and force the issue, or whether he's sort of content to leave the move maybe to a little bit later on in the race, and try and make that move happen maybe towards the last 5 laps of this race.
Well, Andrew, you're in his shoes. What do you do there at this point? Do you go now, or do you try to wait? I mean, what is the advantage? What is the disadvantage to both?
I think because of the way that the tires are working, and they really seems to be picking up grip as this run goes on, if I'm Hoffman, I'm going to wait. I'm going to sit back here, save my equipment, save my tires, and put them in the best spot possible for this final 5-lap run. And then any damage that I potentially still have on my car, that will minimize the impact and minimize the opportunities that Dirks have to get back by me. Of course, the downside of that is if he can't, or if he does wait and he can't make the move happen quickly, then it means that he just won't make the move happen at all. So I think it's a risk, but if I'm Hoffman, that's sort of the tactic that I would be taking right now.
Well, it certainly looks like that may be the tactic he is opting to take, as we haven't seen him really try to make that heavy of a move here coming around, and they're not going to have any lap traffic to help them out, at least not for a while. At least 7 seconds up the road, Thomas Mustonen, your leader, as he has lapped them. He's going to have Molnar, Kinder a little bit up ahead of them, but it's a little bit to be determined if these two are going to be able to catch them in time. But meanwhile, Hoffman just continuing to ride around here in the tire tracks of Ian Dirks. You know, I was watching on board with him a little bit more. He is looking like he's just sort of not pushing as much, being very sensitive on that throttle, obviously watching out for that tire spin that we've talked about, but just being careful is what it feels like Hoffman is doing here. Careful and easy enough to be able to keep everything together.
Yeah, and that's sort of what you have to be at this stage of the race, DJ, because one of the things that we haven't really talked about is, even though this is a very short lap, and it does make a difference that they're on basically lap 82 of the race, as we see Hoffman making a move to the inside of Dirks here. It looks like Hoffman will make the move through turn one. Nice move from Hoffman there. But what I was going to say was, this is the stage of the race where you can start to really lose concentration, particularly because you've done the same lap 82 times, and things start to sort of run together a little bit for you, and you lose track of where you are, you lose concentration just a little bit because you've done the same thing so many times so often in the last hour and a bit. So this is really the danger zone where you have to be very secure in being able to be cautious, but at the same time push just hard enough to keep yourself engaged in the race.
And I know for me, that is always one of the hardest things to be able to do. And Andrew, it's why you've got so many race wins to your name, and I don't, probably. But yeah, it certainly is. But I have to say here that Dirks looking like he's not giving up the ghost yet necessarily. He's keeping this as close as he can, about 3-4 tenths of a second behind, about the gap that we saw Hoffman have behind him for a number of laps. And a little bit of a lock up there for Hoffman. That's not going to help his chances.
Yeah, and you can just tell just how hard both of these drivers are pushing. And I will say for Dirks, this having a driver suddenly get in front of you like that and suddenly make a move, maybe when you weren't expecting it, that can sometimes be one of those wake-up calls, and drivers can respond one of two ways. They can either get the bit back between their teeth and really sort of refocus, or it can really throw them off. It appears that right now Dirks is really refocused, and he is really starting to take the fight back to Jan Hoffman here.
Yeah, indeed, he is. So he's trying to keep that in nice and close. 84 laps in the books here, or 83 laps in the books, working on lap 84, rather, at Sebring International Raceway. Only 15 laps to go in this 100-lap event for the Classic IndyCar Series. Drivers just trying to see what they can do. Dirks definitely not letting that go from Hoffman. He is certainly trying to push here and trying to keep everything together. Not able to get anything there as they work their way through Jean Debian, but as we've talked about, that is not one of the overtaking zones. This is the area where he can be strong. Just try to get that car in the best position as possible.
Yeah, and that's also one of the areas where it's so easy to make a mistake through the corner coming into the Almond Straight there. It's really, really easy to run wide, and we've seen a number of times already today that one small mistake and the car trailing really has a great run down that long straightaway and into sort of the prime passing zone. So I definitely don't count out Jan Dirks here, because all he really has to do right now is pressure Jan Hoffman into a mistake coming onto that back straightaway there, and he very easily could find himself back in front of that 05 car.
Oh, and another mistake there from Hoffman. Hoffman looking like he is definitely starting to feel the pressure a little bit from Jan Dirks behind him. That is certainly not good. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here about these two is Hoffman pitted in on lap 68. Dirks pitted in on 72. Could there be a little bit of fuel discrepancy? Could Hoffman maybe have to save just a little bit more, and could that affect his pace in these closing stages?
I'm not sure that there's a fuel discrepancy at this point, but what there probably is a tire life discrepancy just a little bit here, because again, they I would say that Dirks probably fueled it to just barely make it to the end of the race, and similarly Hoffman would have put in just enough fuel to make it to the end from his lap. But that weight advantage really does pay dividends in terms of tire life, and having 4-lap fresher tires as well, that's going to pay dividends as well. So it's definitely, between the two of them, Dirks definitely has the tire advantage here going into this final stage of the race.
All right, well, we'll have to see how that plays out. A little bit of a scruffy entrance there into turn 2 for both drivers as they came around there, and that's going to keep that gap at about 5 tenths of a second right now. By the way, it looks like Jamie Wilson came down pit lane from P9. Just a little bit of a potentially a splash and dash. Not sure what it is. A 6.3 second stop there from Jamie, so I think that was just a little bit of fuel mismanagement.
Well, I think Wilson had a bit of an adventurous early stage of this race, and he actually came in, I believe, somewhere around lap 10, lap 15 after a small incident that he had early on in the race. So basically, this is just him fleshing out that three-stop strategy that he was sort of forced onto. So Wilson definitely not the type of day that we've expected from him. We haven't really talked about him all day, and that's because he's never really been in the top 10, and he's finds himself well back, I believe now 3 laps down.
I believe you are right on that, and good call on that pit strategy. I hadn't brought that up on my screen, but you are completely right about that. We continue to watch here. Jan Dirks not letting Jan Hoffman get away from him. 0.4 of a second, the advantage right now. This is your closest battle on the track. Now, they are going to be coming up to that slower car of Jamie Wilson, who just came out of pit lane. Now, we haven't seen lap traffic really play too much of a problem here. All lap cars doing a very good job of being courteous and respectful of those blue flags. But if they catch Jamie at the wrong time, this could spell a little bit of problem for Jan Hoffman.
Yeah, and this is the danger zone right here. It's not necessarily when they're right on the back of Jamie Wilson, but it's that like half a second to a full second back where you really start to notice the car in front of you's air affecting how much downforce you have. So this is where Jan Hoffman potentially gets held up, because I suspect that Jamie Wilson will let them by either on this straightaway or the next one. But again, having that extra bit of downforce loss, it can potentially throw a wrench into things. But as we say that, Jamie Wilson does let them by very nicely there. Really courteous from Jamie Wilson, and really expect nothing less from him because he is that type of driver. So really no change, maybe a little bit of a draft advantage there from Hoffman on that straightaway, but this fight, it looks like it's going to continue right to the end of this race.
Yeah, I certainly think it is. Both drivers there wheeling the car through turn 1 right now into the heavy braking zone for turn 2. No mistakes from either Hoffman nor Dirks as we continue to watch here. Drivers just slowly but surely working their way around, getting ready for about 11 laps to go here at Sebring International Raceway. Waiting to see if Dirks is going to be able to make any sort of move. Looks like Cameron Dance just had a little bit of an off track in the back. Remember, a heartbreaking race there for Dance. He looked like he was going to be closing in on the back, and just bad luck catching him out once again, and a couple of errors there, putting Cameron down in the field. Mustonen continues to lead by now a whopping 19.5 seconds over Joshua Chin. Matt Molnar about 38 seconds behind Chin. So Chin may not have the pace of Mustonen, but he certainly has the pace over the rest of the field.
Yeah, well, and throughout the course of this run, it's basically been basically a quarter to half a second a lap per lap faster for Mustonen throughout the course of this final stint. And you mentioned Matt Molnar. He is now also 1 lap down to Thomas Mustonen. So Mustonen has lapped all the way up to second place. So only 2 cars on the lead lap. And judging by the gaps, that looks like how we're going to finish here.
Yeah, I don't really see that shaking out any other way. Good news, though, for Josh Chin. It looks like he will be able to stay on the lead lap as Mustonen just crosses over the start-finish line now, and Chin is down on the Ullman straight, so there shouldn't be enough time for Mustonen to be able to catch him in that regard. Now we're seeing this gap between Dirks and Hoffman, though, close down a little bit as they went into the sunset bend. A little bit closer for Dirks. We are 10 to go. I think he knows it is go time.
Yeah, this is definitely the time where Dirks needs to press, and you can see just how much he's pressuring Hoffman as he makes a mistake. He really doesn't like that braking zone, does Hoffman, into that turn 2, turn 3 complex there, and that's put Dirks right on the back of Hoffman. Now, this is going to be the important part. Will Hoffman make a mistake through here that will allow Dirks to just get that little bit closer? Dirks is really close to the back of Hoffman, but Hoffman gets a really nice drive off on Ullman.
Yeah, and it looked like there that Dirks was just a little bit off the apex coming down into there. Other news that we are hearing, by the way, is that he's having to do a little bit of lifting as Dirks is hard into the limiter. You could hear him on board there, hard into the limiter at the end of the Ullman straight, and so that could be scuppering him just a little bit, as that's obviously going to be capping his top line speed.
Yeah, that'll absolutely be an issue for Dirks because he just doesn't have the gear to really make that move happen. So the move, I think, has got to happen into this complex here, but it's a really difficult place because you have such a short run, but Hoffman again makes a small mistake through there. So this is really the part of the track that Hoffman is struggling with the most, but Dirks has got to find a way to find the bravery to chuck it down the inside into turn 2, turn 3, and that's really, I think, the only shot that Dirks has given how hard he is into the limiter, because as we're on board, you can just watch those lights on his dash. He's already in sixth gear. He's already at the top of the range, and you see that flashing. He's definitely at the top of his rev range there.
Yeah, he is able to close in a little bit under braking there, bring the gap down under 0.4 of a second, but it doesn't quite look like he's able to close in enough. He keeps taking a wider line through Le Mans to try to close in a little bit, but I'm not sure how well it's working for him as he's just not able to close it in. Here he comes through turn 1. You talked about maybe trying to send a big send down here into 2. Definitely closes up under braking. Not close enough. Hoffman doesn't make a mistake there as we work with 8 laps to go, and Hoffman gets a better run off the corner. That gap extending out to about 0.5 of a second.
Yeah, and this is the cat and mouse game that's going to happen is can you, if you're Dirks, can you pressure him into a mistake? Because again, if you don't have that rev limiter range, you might not be able to make the pass happen by normal means. As we say that though, Dirks taking a look to the inside, he really thinks that he might be able to make this pass happen, but it's going to be very, very difficult with the gearing as it is.
Yeah, it certainly is, but he is close here. 0.2 of a second. Could we maybe see a little bit of a send going down into turn 1 potentially? Closes in under 0.2, a tenth and a half as they cross over. Backs off going into turn 1. It's not going to be there. 7 laps to go here at Sebring International Raceway. He lost a lot of time there with that back off into turn 1. Is he going to be able to gain that back up, especially with him hitting that rev limiter as they go down? Working their way now through Jean Debienne, trying to see if there's anything to be had. Working it around there again, diving it down. A little bit of a wiggle there coming off of the corner for Jan Dirks, but that doesn't quite look enough like it's going to be anything there to cost him too much time. Gap coming down under 0.4 now.
Yeah, and of course, turn 1 is the highest commitment corner on this track, and not only that, but it's the one that you need that downforce the most in. So having to run that close behind the car in front of him, that's really affecting Dirks through turn 1, and it's really destroying his ability to try and make that lunge into turn 2 that he needs. So maybe if I'm Dirks, I'm going to try and find maybe an alternate line through turn 1 here that gives me a little bit more fresh air on that front wing and just allows me to stay that little bit closer. But right now, this is big. We've got some traffic right in front of this battle here, DJ.
Yeah, indeed we do. That's Jack Turner right there as he is going to be trying to come up and see if he'll be able to get out of the way as they work their way through the mall. I would anticipate Jack probably just moving off to the right here down the Ullman straightaway. He's going to stay on the racing line. Good commitment there. That is just a recognition from all drivers of doing the thing that is most predictable. Dirk's going to be able to pull that gap down under 0.3 of a second here. Breaking down into Sunset. A little bit of a tighter line there for Jan Dirks. Tries to get the power down to the best of his abilities out of Sunset. Looks like he's going to be pretty close. Under 0.2 of a second. Under 1.6 here. This is going to be full commitment mode for Dirks, but he's not able to do it. Able to stay a little bit closer than he was a couple of laps ago, though, and keep that gap around 0.3 of a second as they break down into turn 2.
This is some fascinating action here, DJ, and you can just see it's all mental right here between these two. It's all about Dirks trying to find those extra few feet, those few meters that he needs to get that little bit closer to Hoffman in front, and Hoffman doing everything he possibly can to not make a mistake, to not give Dirks that one opening that he needs. And it's so much a mental game as it is a skill game at this point. It's fascinating to watch.
Yeah, it really and truly is. And especially here for Dirks, I mean, we've seen Hoffman make a couple of mistakes here previously in this race, so he knows he is vulnerable in that regard. He has got to be trying to push here to the best of his ability, seeing what he can do. Licking down to the inside there. I don't think that was a real look there, Andrew. I think that was just a little bit more of a mental game to see if he could force another mistake out of Hoffman.
Yeah, it's one of those things where sometimes you just need to poke your nose in, even if you know you're not going to make the move. You need to let the other driver know that you're there and that you can potentially make a move here. But with 3 laps to go, Dirks is fast running out of time here, so I suspect that the desperation is going to set in sooner rather than later here, DJ.
I think it is as well, and it's just a matter of when that desperation is going to take hold. Your leader, by the way, coming out of a turn, Sunset Bend right now, is going to cross over the line to put 3 laps to go on the board. Dirks already up into that rev limiter. Later on the brakes into Sunset, then Hoffman. You can see how close they run on your screen. This, once again, the battle for P5. Hoffman doing his best to try to keep Dirks at bay. The gap falling down under 0.2 of a second as they cross over the start-finish line. This is the battle for P5, trying to see what he's got. Hoffman really able to defend that line well. Dirks not able to close in. Lock up there from Hoffman. That's one of those little mistakes that Dirks is going to be looking for.
Oh, this is exactly what Dirks needed, but can he stay close enough to Hoffman through this next sequence here to really maximize? He's got to find a way to make Hoffman make a mistake through here, because so far Hoffman, this is where he's been the strongest. He's really started to pull away from Dirks on the exit of this corner. This time though, Dirks gets a really good exit there. This is the closest we've seen Dirks. I think we might be seeing a move here, DJ.
Indeed, and Hoffman positioning that car in the middle of the track to be a little bit defensive. Not going to be able to get it done is Dirks. He looks for a little bit of a crossover going through Sunset. That's not going to happen. 2 laps to go here for these drivers. Dirks even closer now as they come out of Sunset. He's going to be within 1/10 of a second. Is he going to have a move going down into turn 1? Looks down to the inside. He's going to have to be later on the binders. Can he send it? Doesn't look like it. Hoffman's going to try to carry speed, but Hoffman runs a little bit wide. Out onto the grass. They're going to be side by side into the braking zone for turn 2. They're still going to be side by side, trying to hold it out, and Hoffman has the line.
Oh, but Hoffman spins his tires coming out of the corner, and it looks like Dirks is going to try and move back on him. He's going around the outside here, DJ. I think he's got the move done.
I think he does as well. That's going to hold it out, and he is going to have the line coming down out of Le Mans. But the question is now, can Hoffman respond? Gap coming down under 2.5 of a second. White flag in the air.
And here comes Hoffman back on Dirks. You see the Dirks' car, he just doesn't have the straight line speed, but he's got the inside line here. Hoffman around the outside. I don't think he's going to be able to get this done, but he definitely looks like he might have another response here.
I think he might indeed, as that was a good run off of the corner there for Hoffman. They cross over to take the white flag from Barney the Flagman as they continue to go down. Hoffman to the outside, Dirks to the inside. It's a repeat of what we saw last time. Hoffman woes the cars up a little bit better, doesn't run wide. He's going to have the preferred line coming down into turn 2. They try to outbrake each other, but they're still going to be side by side coming through Bishop as they work it out there. Again, wheel spin for Hoffman. He's not able to get the crossover.
And it was so important for Dirks to get clear of Hoffman before this sequence of corners, because this is going to allow him to maybe get just enough space in between himself and Hoffman here. But here it is. Thomas Mustonen is your winner, DJ.
Absolutely dominant drive to the tune of 24.5 seconds for Mustonen. Absolutely dominant. Behind them, we watch as that is Dirks looking like he is going to be able to hold it out over Jan Hoffman. Discretion being the better part of valor and being the better part of 5th place, as Jan Dirks will take 5th place from Jan Hoffman by 0.4 of a second. Joshua Chin waiting for him to cross over the line, as he already has. He comes home P2. Matt Molnar will be in 3rd, it looks like. And Henry Bennett rounds out the top 4 with Dirks in 5th. But the story of today, we didn't get to focus on him too much because he was that dominant. It was Thomas Mustonen. 24.5 seconds. You don't get more dominant than that.
Yeah, it was an absolutely clinical drive for Mustonen, and I feel bad that we didn't pay more attention to him, but the fact of the matter is he was just so far in a class of his own that there really was very little action in terms of his drive, and I'm sure that he was just fine with that because it meant that he just dominated this race. But what a battle we saw for P5 there, and it is worth noting that Henry Bennett did actually make it a pretty tight race for 3rd and your final spot on the podium there. He got to basically within a second of Matt Molnar there, so we had some great battles throughout the course of this race, but Mustonen definitely the story of the day. What a dominant drive.
Indeed, and let's run you through that unofficial finishing order here on the day. Thomas Mustonen there with that absolutely dominant drive. Joshua Chin behind him. Matthew Molnar able to round out your podium. And as we said, Mustonen able to lap the entire field up to P2. Henry Bennett was fourth after being able to hold off Jan Dirks on that Apex Tex Racing machine. Jan Hoffman was in sixth place with that battle with Dirks. Sebastian Kender there in seventh with Franz Joseph Stum in eighth. Jamie Wilson ninth for Team Chimera, and 10th was Cameron Dance.
And now in 11th, we're getting into some of the people who had more issues on the day. Caleb Salinger, 11th. Randy Shoemake, Jack Turner, Stefan Schlocker, of course, your first car that's really retired from this race with that unfortunate incident through sunset. Jack Stiles got into it. Stefan Schlocker, the two race spot commentators, not necessarily playing nice there. Lucas Laville with that unfortunate incident on that one lap that claimed both himself and his teammate Marshall Stanley, as well as Andrew Wood. Robert Barnico retired the 14 car around the same time as well, and Jonathan Diggs rounds out your top 20 for Kinetic Racing.
And a couple more non-finishers on the day. Andrew Adair Saunders, Visa Yelamola there, Robert Grosser, Oscar Fredrickson, Andrew Atkin, and Heinz Patatkin rounding out your drivers in this 26-car field. All of those bottom six, by the way, DNFs. We are going to take a quick break here on RaceSpotTV, but do not go anywhere because we will be back with podium interviews right after this break.
Indycar Ministry is the official pastoral care of the NTT Indycar Series, as well as the Road to Indy, and is focused on building relationships within the IndyCar community by serving those involved with the love of Christ. Indycar Ministry is a non-profit, non-denominational organization that provides at-track church services, counseling, and support in times of crisis, both on the road as well as at home. Indycar Ministry is a 501c3 not-for-profit and is blessed to be supported entirely by the donations we receive from people just like you. We invite you to partner with us to make a difference. Head over to IndyCarMinistry.org, like us on Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel and see what we're all about.
Welcome back to RaceSpotTV. You have just witnessed the IndyCar Ministry Grand Prix of St. Pete, presented by the Classic IndyCar Series, powered by Buttkicker. My name is DJ Clark, and we are happy to be joined here in the booth by your second place finisher, Josh Chin, who really had to fight his way up through the field a little bit there. Josh up 2 places on the day. A little ways back from Thomas, but still got to feel pretty good being able to have such a big gap over Matt Molnar behind you.
Yeah, it was really a race of attrition. I wasn't expecting. I had a little bit of a snap early, and it kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop of what I was going to do for the rest of the race. I kind of figured I would be battling with Cam, and then put me back. Had to get it back on the pit stop, and then everyone else in the top 5 at that point had issues, so that worked out pretty well, I guess. But overall, can't complain. This place still has my number. It's 2 races where I didn't qualify as well as I wanted to and finished second or third, and haven't quite gotten up to the race pace and gotten it all ironed out here.
Well, what is it about this place that just throws you off? I mean, I know for myself personally, it's one of those tracks that I can never exactly figure out, but I obviously don't have the skill or the talent that you do. So I'm just curious from your perspective, what makes it so challenging for you?
It's just a really difficult layout to pass on. There's only really 1 or 2 spots, and everywhere else that you're braking, you kind of almost accordion up. So the only real like braking zone per se is going into Sunset Bend with the modified layout. So it's difficult to set it up. If guys run a little bit lower downforce, it's even harder to set up that pass. Some guys go, 3-4 mile an hour faster down the straight, and you're drafting them and barely making the same speed. It's hard to make those overtakes, even if you're half a second to a second faster.
Well, as we turn our eyes ahead, we obviously go to Interlagos next time out on May 8th. Do you think that's going to fare a little bit better for you, or does that one have your number as well?
Well, the pit exit had my number, 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember which. So as long as I don't do that, I think I'll be fine. The race pace was good, so we'll see. I think the roadside's getting a lot more competitive in this. I mean, honestly, overall, it's just more competitive in general on both sides, but the roadside has definitely become more competitive. I don't think I'm going to have a runaway victory like a Detroit last year or something like that. So it'll be a challenge.
It'll be a challenge indeed, Josh. And but today, a second place, gotta feel good, and congratulations again.
Thank you, guys, and thank you to everyone that makes the league possible.
All right, thank you. That was Josh Chin, your second place finisher. And Andrew, I believe you have caught up with our winner, Thomas Mustonen.
And Thomas, what a drive we saw from you today. How easy was that from the front of this field?
Not easy, to be honest. It was really tough. I wasn't expecting it at all, and the track is just really difficult with all the bumps and very physical and mentally exhausting.
Yeah, and talk to us a little bit about that, because oftentimes I find that when you get into that type of lead, it's really difficult to sort of stay focused. Was that the case for you, or were you just sort of on your toes the whole race?
Yeah, I kind of had to be on my toes, but I was looking at the Delta a lot, thinking like, okay, I do not want to throw this away. Like, that added some extra pressure because of what happened at Road America last year, where I threw away a possible win, or at least a fight for the win. So I did not want that to happen again.
Absolutely. Now that you've got the monkey off your back, so to speak, what are we thinking looking forward? Obviously, next time out is Interlagos. Are we thinking back-to-back victories here?
Yeah, that's the goal. I want to go for the Road Championship this year, and now really worked on my driving over the winter, and I feel I can do it now. Like, this is the first step towards that, to gain the confidence for it.
Awesome. Well, definitely you sent a shot across the bow of all the other road course aces in this series, because that was definitely one of the more dominating drives that we've seen. So congratulations on everything that you did today.
Thank you.
Awesome. And that was Thomas Mustonen. And so back to you here, DJ.
Indeed, and that is about going to wrap things up for us here on RaceSpotTV. Again, you have been watching the IndyCar Ministries Grand Prix of St. Pete. As we said, the next round will be at Interlagos, the home of the Brazilian Grand Prix, May 8th, 2022 at 18 UTC. So you do not want to miss that. Make sure to put that down on your calendars. Again, before we go, though, we would like to thank our sponsors for the series, the title series sponsor, the Buttkicker, as well as Extreme Scoring, for putting this all together. This has been the Classic IndyCar Series, presented by the Buttkicker. My name is DJ Clark, and on behalf of Andrew Kinsella and Tyler Maxson behind the scenes, we would like to thank you for joining us here today. And until we see you on the track, thanks for watching.
With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker. The future is feeling.